Russell looks good this. Good morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We are live. Today is September 6th, 2023. We have about 48 hours and some change until the NFL season kicks off. The level of excitement that fall coming back into fold, that the gridiron shall be alive. These are the things. Why do I hear myself?
Great. How about now?
How about now? I hear myself. Just me, myself, and I. I don't have Discord open, so I don't know. Well, there. Now I don't hear myself.
Well, yeah, but they can't hear you on Discord either. Having some issues with the stream this morning that I'm trying to work through last minute. So
you did do Control Alt Delete, right?
Well, I tried numerous things. For anybody that works in corporate, how you have to reset your password every 30, 60, or 90 days or something like that. Well, it was, I run the stream hosting machine in the cloud, and it was prompting me to reset the password. And I said, I'll get to it later. And I didn't. So now I can't log into it remotely. So I'm trying to run it off of my own machine, which is not how I normally do this, and having some issues. So I think, Hells, we need to...
I think we're good. I can't hear myself anymore.
Right, but like I said, they can't hear you in Discord this morning.
Well, then they can go to the YouTube. Or do you want to just call it and say no show?
They can go to the YouTube.
So it doesn't do any good for me to tell them to go to the YouTube because they couldn't hear me even if I said to
no,
go.
But they can hear me. So y'all in Discord, if you want to hear it this morning, you got to go to the YouTube. Link is pinned. If anybody needs that link, ask. I'll post it again.
All right. So
thank you, Aggie Man. Go ahead.
We tested some overnight levels and such as and whatnot, and didn't really get like a miraculous bounce. Why is this?
Not enough buyers.
Oh, we're going to do that again. Okay. So.
I don't know what else do you want? I mean,
it was interesting. So we sold off yesterday. After hours, they weren't interested in buying anything either. Sometimes after you get a sell into close, you get buyers coming in and buying back up after hours. Sometimes they weren't interested in buying yesterday at all. At the end of the day, they weren't interested after hours. They weren't interested in for the first several hours of futures, and then they just kind of just gave out, and we had a little sell down.
Do we have data today?
We've run through a bunch of data already, but we do get PMI services, I believe, 15 minutes after open. So we'll get opening range set and PMI coming out then. I think it's, 15 minutes after market opens, we get PMI for global composite and global services. So we get those notched in. We get some ISM manufacturing data at the 30 minutes after opening. So we do have data in front of us that needs to come into play. A couple of things that I want to talk about a little bit. Headlines are just banging, bombastic, boom, whatever you want to call it, as far as, student loan debt coming back on, delinquencies up. That is just, they're screaming it now about as loud as they could, when this has been a headwind that many people have been seeing and talking about for the last 2.5, 3 months. But now, it's something that people want to talk about. Now, delinquencies are up. There's no question about that. But the one thing that you have to be aware of is how the market has a ability to disconnect itself from the economy. It has this ability to do it. Kind of like, just to give an example, when you see layoffs, oh man, that's so bad. And then the stock's up like 3%. Kind of like that, yet a little bit different. But we do have a lot of data coming out. The other piece that I'll throw out there, and we'll roll into your chart, Spender, is at this point, it does not appear that there's any type of a rate increase priced in for the September meeting. It would appear that way, that they are not pricing in an actual increase. So we do get some Fed speakers. Collins spoke this morning. I have no idea what Collins had to say. We have to be aware that some of this jawboning and going into the actual meeting next week could be pretty important, considering that they have not factored anything into an actual rate increase. With this being said, Bender, chart us up some stuff.
All right. Let me share my screen here.
It is annoying though, man. I'm not going to lie, how literally this student loan thing and delinquencies have been basically in the face of everybody for the last 3 months, and then just randomly in the last 24 hours they're like, oh no, now we can talk. Oh no, now it appears that there could be problems.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at this here. So the first thing we'll do, just because we talked about it yesterday, and just so we can keep tabs on it, is go to the daily and look at the three indices here. And we were talking about this daily fair value gap on the Dow, and it broke down. It did not hold that daily fair value gap. So we do have this volume imbalance sitting in here. Looks something like that. And then you can see there's this fair value gap and then this volume imbalance right here. So I'll kind of be tracking this and see what we do now that we have kind of traded down into this, see if this level holds on the Dow. If it doesn't, we'll be watching this fair value gap right in here down to about 34,483. That's a ways down from here. So I don't know that, to necessarily get there today, but that's kind of what I'll be looking at, keeping track of. Going over to the ES, we had talked about the fact that the Dow had already traded down into this daily fair value gap, and the ES and NQ hadn't. Well, lo and behold, now you have the ES trading down into this daily fair value gap. And what you'll see on my 15-minute chart is that I've split this in half to give us the midpoint to figure out if it does continue to move down, where we might be looking. Moving over to the NASDAQ, you can see it has not reached this daily fair value gap thus far, right? It's got this one right in here that it's traded down into, but the wicks on these daily candles trades down into it, and then it's pushing back up. So be tracking this as well. And you can see the bottom of that comes in at 15,428.25. You can see the tail of this candle wicking below it, but then pushing back up. If we get back down into this area, You can see there's this volume imbalance in here that it traded down into. If it does push back down into this area, that's where I'd be looking for, potential for it to reverse, because until it's not doing this, right? That's the plan. If we talked before about kind of the Mr. T's concept of time distortion, which is, if this is what you see going on, then that is the program until it's not, until it breaks down, and then you figure out what the new plan is and play it. And I'm sure Stonkington's going to come on and talk about some Smashburger type stuff. So I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it. But these are the gaps that I'm tracking. If we move over to the ES 15-minute, the shaded box down here being that daily fair value gap. And you can see I've split that in half. 44.73 is the midpoint. I drew this yesterday. We were kind of looking at this descending wedge here, which we have just broken out of the bottom of it, which is not entirely abnormal or unexpected. A lot of times it will break something like this. If the objective is to move higher, a lot of times it will break lower first, or vice versa. If the objective is to move lower, a lot of times it'll break higher first without getting any continuation before going the other way, that one last pull on liquidity, right? You also see I've got the London session low here. That is 44.8625. It breaks below that and it can't reclaim it pretty quickly. I'd be looking at this midpoint, 44.73. Conversely, if it breaks it, reclaims it, you can see that we've got now a near-term top established right up here for that 44.96. We were talking about 44.9625 last week and yesterday. If it gets back above that, then I would be looking for the Asia session highs. But you have this candle's high right here, 45.01, and then the Asia session high is 45.0375. And if it pushes up to that 45.0375, that's where you gotta kind of look on the shorter time frames and look for it to either create a fair value gap above, right? It gets through, pulls back to test, another candle up that leaves a fair value gap behind, trades down into that, that's your entry. Or it blasts above, pulls back down, rejects, and that next candle down that creates that fair value gap, you wait for an entry back into that to short it if we're going lower. And I think it's kind of all about if we can get, back above 4,500 and hold, then we've got a shot. If we get below this London low and can't reclaim it real quick, then I think we're targeting the midpoint of that daily fair value gap. Again, 44.73. Last thing I'll say is that, if I go out to a 60-minute, kind of everything I was just talking about gives you a wider view of, all right, we broke through the bottom of that descending wedge. And if we can reclaim it and start pushing back up and get back above the Asia session high, that would put us at the top of that wedge, right? So again, head on a swivel. If we get up there and we take that out. And I think that, if I bring a little more into view, kind of like that, you can kind of see that, above 45.20 or so, gives it the look that, potentially it's coming back up here to take out, make a run on these highs up over 4,600. That could kind of be the start to that run, right? We still have some levels in here that we're looking at last week. This high from August 4th, that's still hanging out there. this high 40, 45, 47, 75, which we made. What was that? First? Yeah. So that high didn't take out that August 4th high. And so that still remains just above that. You have that regular trading hours gap and then into the daily volume imbalance. That kind of covers it. If we pull down in here to the midpoint of this 44.73, and again, it's not able to hold there, and it falls through, you can see these candles we talked about, yesterday, that there's not a whole lot stopping it. If the plan wasn't to come down in here, pierce into this daily fair value gap and then take it higher from here, there's not a whole lot stopping it until, really it kind of fills this in 44, 42.75. And then you've got a short ways to 44.34 to the kind of the bottom of where this run started. So we'll be tracking these levels. If we are going to make a down move, I'll be calling these out as we approach them. As always, looking at the shorter time frames to kind of get a hat tip, an indication as we approach these levels, whether above or below, looking for those signs to kind of give us an idea of what's next. I think that's about all I got.
Thank you, Bender. What you got there, Sonny?
Yep.
Morning, everyone. Roku cut their workforce by 10%, so they got an 8% spike in the pre-market.
Boom. What
Yeah.
were we just talking about?
Exactly. And I think they had already talked about this a few months ago, like you said, and now they finally announced the cuts. What you got to keep in mind is, even though they announced cuts, right? So it's a layoff, so they can't just be, out the door now. You still get paid for 4 weeks or 2 weeks and whatnot, and then it actually shows up in the reports that the feds and ADP, and then they recalculate and all that shit that happens. Good times on those. So the airlines were talking about a couple of weeks ago, and I commented on this. I think Total Shaden had posted, airlines are saying they had the best bookings for the rest of the year, blah, 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 blah. We are doing great. So today they said, hey, we're going to take a hit because of the fuel cost rising in Q3. Southwest is expecting 5 to 7% fall in revenue per available seat mile in Q3. 3 airlines that came out with that their revenue is going to shrink, the margin is going to shrink. Southwest, United, Alaska. So it's pretty much across the board. It can be just these 3 airlines. So keep a watch out for that. Negative flow on those. I'll be watching UAL, DAL, since they're a nice mover when the flow comes in. TSMC, they were opening up the chip plant in Arizona. That's been delayed till 2025 now. And the big news was China has banned the use of iPhones for central government official work. So you cannot bring your iPhone to work anymore. The flip side they're saying is, even though the government's banning, bringing the phones into work, it shouldn't affect regular people buying iPhones. It's kind of like the TikTok ban. You cannot have it on your government phone, but you can have a personal phone and bring it into your office and still do your TikToks. So kind of like the same thing here. Investor Day. So HubSpot, they have an analyst day today. Align, ALGN, will have an investor day. Intuit will host an innovation day today. So we could get some nice movement there. 2 p.m. is the Beige Book release. So usually it's kind of iffy on that. Sometimes we see spikes up and down when it come out, and other times it's like, whatever. But keep that on your clock, 2 p.m. EST. Upgrades, Chewy, FSLR, SMTC, STZ, ZS, and Toast. So ZS price target raised to 190, TOST price target raised to 30. FSLR price target raised to 206 by Morgan Stanley. On the downgrade side, LUV, Square SQ and STEM. UBS downgraded Square to price target of 65 with a neutral rating. On the SPX side, so we're in the negative GEX range for today, 4465 to 4525. Zero gamma is 4470. Large gamma 4475, 4500, and 4450. Put out what I see play wise on SPX. So that's it.
What do you mean that's it?
That's it.
Well, man said that's it. Stonkington, what you got?
All right, I'm here. We got some good stuff today.
Stonkington, before you go, Rusty's acting like it wants to play a little bounce. It's acting a little bit stronger than everybody else.
Yeah, well, we'll have to jump into that. We saw those IWM calls.
Yes.
So yeah,
never forget.
true. Never forget. We will have to take a look at those IWM calls or the Rusty and all that good stuff. But today we get to get in and learn about a new book. Highly recommend this one. Good stuff in here. I'm pretty sure Mr. T was learning from this guy, but I don't know if maybe someone who's learned more, watched more Mr. T than I have can say if he's ever given a nod to this guy, but he's definitely learned some things from him, I would have to say. Let's see, he's got some good stuff here in his book. This guy will say he prefers horizontal breakout levels over diagonal because a diagonal will give more false breakouts. So that's like if you're trading trend lines, Mr. T is pretty openly anti-trend line. He used the last day rule. So this guy was swinging futures commodity trades, which if anyone is familiar with leverage related to swinging futures contracts, that takes a lot of money. And so he had the last day rule. So if you were trading a pattern that broke out on a specific day, so if it broke out to the upside, you would use this opposite, the low of that day as your stop. Same thing if you're trading head and shoulders, broke to the downside, you use the high of that day as your stop. He also says patterns that confirm on a Friday have the most potential for continuation. No overnight trading on commodity swinging where he would potentially be looking for stop hunts. That's a Mr. T, seek and destroy. And more importantly, we get a new pattern from this guy that we can track. He has back tested a lot, and it's going to be the Bukkake pattern. So this, I do the inside bars, and basically this one is a failed continuation off an inside bar. So here's a bullish one. There's the inside bar. It breaks out to the upside, and then you short the opposite side of the outside bar. To the downside, you got the inside bar. It breaks to the downside, and so you take the long when that breaks. So we can do some examples real quick. Inside bar indicator is turned on, so the yellow and blue bars are inside bars. So we've got inside bar breaks to the upside, and then you'd short here. Inside bar breaks to the upside, you short here on the outside bar. Inside bar breaks to the downside, take this long. So that's the idea behind it. So if we take a look here on the SPX weekly, this is potentially in play for a downside setup. Here's the inside bar. We broke to the upside, so again, it's like a failed breakout setup. So we would be potentially waiting. I'll set an alert on this one because it could take a while, but that would be your failed breakout. So that's another setup you can watch on top of Smash Burgers. So something good book, would recommend. And the actual name of that pattern is the Hikake pattern. Hikake, but it was close enough, so we're gonna have Bukkake.
So, Stonk, I'm just gonna let go. Please carry on.
All right, I'm glad people thought I didn't know what I was talking about there. Yeah, the Hikake pattern is that one. All right, so here's the NASDAQ.
How do you pronounce that? Just what is the official pronunciation of the word?
So I was listening to it as an audio book, But
I'm
it was
sure
just
you were.
a robot voice that kept saying hickake, hickake. And I looked at the word. I'm like, what? Bukkake? What?
Okay, so what were you audio booking? This is getting really weird really fast.
I showed the book. You missed the book right here. That's what
Okay,
that's
got
what I
it.
was talking about. That was the
Got it.
whole
Okay.
thing. All right, there you go. All right, let's get into the charts. Cracking myself up over here. All right, so Bender walked through some of this. Here's the daily fair value gap. Here's the daily volume imbalance, and a similar wedge that has had some overshoots to the upside, overshoot to the downside. So jump back over to the daily. So because we had this daily fair value gap, the low to this high, and then we've got the volume bounce Bender shows, because we had candles closing above, would be potentially looking for that area down there to work as support. Mr. T did a live reading, or whatever you want to call it, live market analysis yesterday, and he was saying when seeing wicks like that, just going whipsawing back and forth, it's less likely to see a fair value gap hold if you were looking for it to be an inversion gap. So that's something we can kind of keep in mind. But so for upside, we've got the new week opening gap we have to get through. And for whatever reason, there's definitely some guy up here that we keep running into trouble each time we run up into that 15,580. If we can crack that and continue to the upside, we've got this daily fair value gap above with the midpoint marked where we rejected pretty close to there. So these would be upside targets. And then if we fall through the volume imbalance, we've got this big daily fair value gap below from the killer trend day last week. Got the midpoint marked. So these would be levels I'll be looking for to the downside. Jump over to the Russell. All right, so we've got this weekly gap that I've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. That's going to be these orange lines. So because we had this green candle close above this gap, that had me thinking we would want to see this level work as support. So we're holding just above there right now. Daily, we've got, originally it was this low to this high, and then I was looking for that area to work as support. It failed yesterday. So now we see what we get. If we push back to the upside, I'll be watching for the reaction to the bottom of that daily fair value gap, 1889. This level was marked here because this was a 4-hour fair value gap, which we have bounced off to the tick. So if we lose that, we've got this volume imbalance down here, but everything else is kind of balanced. There was a gap here, but this wick filled it in. So we'll just have to kind of see what we got. It was kind of a rising wedge that broke yesterday. So yeah, if I would want to see this hold based on the weekly candle closes, and then upside I'll be looking for 1889, and then potentially up through 19.8, 1900.8. That was that daily gap. So that's what we'll be looking for on the Russell. Individual tickers, go through this quick. Tesla daily inside bar. Downside, I'll be looking at 252.4 key levels. See a bunch of reactions there. Resistance, works as support. So let's see what we get if we go down there. And then above, we've got a dark pool, 260.11. Not huge or anything, but Tesla hasn't been getting much dark pool lately, so could be significant. And it worked as resistance Friday. So we'll see what we get there. Meta, I'll be watching. Looks like it's kind of sitting just below this 302 round number psych level. Then next we'd probably have to be watching what happens up there at 303.9. To the downside, I'll be watching that 297.33. That's a dark pool from the end of August. And that's all I got.
The man says that's all he has. So does anybody else have anything about anything that they would like to talk about, share, offer? Anybody? Doesn't sound like it. All right. So we have data 15 and 30 minutes after open. We got Fed jibber jabber here, there, everywhere. Good luck. Have fun. Make money. Don't lose money. And we'll see you guys later. That's all I got.
Don't fuck it up.
Don't fuck it up, says the Binda.
Do not fuck up.
All right. We'll see you shortly.
See ya.